Day, good afternoon. Today we have as MUISS Activities position. So before we start, let's go through the itinerary first. So we'll first begin with an intro, which is what's going right now, which will be followed by an opening statement from our candidate, and then we'll have a Q&A session from the office bearer, and then we'll have a Q&A session from the students. So throughout this whole debate, to whoever is watching, please feel free to drop your questions in the comments, which I'll ask later on, and then we'll end the debate session with a closing statement. So Kresna, you can go ahead with your opening statement.
All right, thank you, Anmo. Good evening, everybody. My name is Kresna Paramaputra, or you can call me Kresna for short. And I am a Year 3 Civil Engineering student running for MUISS Activities Officer 2022. So you may be wondering, why am I passionate to run for this position? When I was a new student in Monash in 2019, I was a lost international student with no friends to talk to or even ask questions. When I experienced a MUISS event for the first time, I was introduced to many friends from different parts of the world, bringing me a sense of acceptance and welcome to the university. As I joined more and more MUISS events, my connections got wider and wider, and I was able to improve my cultural awareness significantly. I want all international students in Monash, Malaysia to experience what I experienced, as I believe there are still a number of students who still feel lost and have nothing to hang on to. International students are far away from their family and their home. That's why it is my number one priority to bring these students a second home, a second family, by creating more engaging and inclusive events to give them a sense of belonging and acceptance in Monash, Malaysia. In my manifesto, I mentioned my main goals and the changes I want to implement for the events and the activities division as a MUISS Activities Officer. I want to maximize both on and off campus experience for international students. With uncertain times ahead, we never know when we will get back to campus. However, with whatever possibility that might be ahead, I want students to maximize their years as a university student. In online events, I intend to make events much more engaging to make students not hesitate to make connections and learn about other students' cultures. These events could be in the form of casual game nights, experience sharing nights, and many others. In offline events, I will ensure that students maximize their on campus experience, as most of their studies have been offline. I plan on organizing events or celebrating the different cultures and traditions in the Monash community for students to maximize their cultural awareness. A change that I think would improve the uniqueness and qualities of MUISS events would be to utilize the creative minds of Monash Malaysia students in planning and improving events and competitions. An interactive forum for these international students can be made to gather students' ideas and suggestions for future MUISS events, which will result in the endless innovative events and activities ideas. Lastly, I am adamant in ensuring the systematic mode of work in the internal side of the activities division. Well, task managing and scheduling is a must in the activities division, as there are more than 20 events per year being handled by this division. And that is the reason why task managing and scheduling platforms such as Notion and Google Calendar is mandatory for scheduling of events and task assignments to keep every member on track of the division's work and progress throughout the year. I am an individual with passion to serve international students, along with experiences of reaching out to external parties, hosting various events, and handling logistic-related matters, which have boosted my negotiation skills, organization skills, and confidence and communication. These skills that I possess are critical for an activities officer, which leads me to believe that I am a perfect candidate for this role. Thank you.
Thank you, Kresna, for your opening speech. Now we'll move on to the next session, which is the Q&A session from the office bearer. Today we have Gerald, who's the current MUISS Activities Officer. So you have the floor to ask the question.
Okay,
You're
so
on mute. Oh,
uh, can you hear me now?
Okay.
Hello, am I
Yes.
okay?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you so much, Krishna, for being here right now. I was also in your position, so I know how challenging it must be to reach this point. So thanks for that. So I'm gonna start with my general set of questions first before I move on to a more specific questions pertaining to your manifesto. So the first general question I has is that I've read about your manifesto and also your election guide, and there, I've also asked about your reasoning, right, for running as a MUISS Activities Officer. So my question now would be, I want to know what does being a MUISS Activities Officer mean to you if you are to be elected next year? Because I believe that not just the why or the motivation is important, but what does the role itself mean to you? Then it will show to your work ethics and end results. So what does being a MUISS Activities Officer mean to you if you're to be elected next year?
Okay, thank you, Gerald. So MUIS, being a MUIS head of activities is not only for gaining experience or adding another experience to my CV, but also I want to give back to MUIS and also bringing the students a second home, a second family through MUIS events. And that is actually what motivates me to be the head of activities. And I want them to raise their cultural awareness as online events have been generating low engagements. And so that's why this year I want these students to experience what I experienced as a Monash student. I want all Monash students to be aware of all the different cultures and the Monash community, and not only just for being the head of activities as experience as an addition to my CV.
Okay, so thank you for that. So my next question would be, from an outsider's perspective or as a student in general, since you have not been a part of MUIS's subcommittee, right? What are the things that you see right now for the MUIS's events or the MUIS activities department that needs improving? And well, what would you do differently, or what change would you like to bring forth if you were to be elected as the MUIS activities officer next year?
All right, thank you, Gerald. So what I see right now is the lack of participation of events, as events have been offline. So the engagement and also the participation of events have been quite low. And I understand that, and that happens to every organization. So my initiative might change the to increase the uniqueness and also the participation of events is by implementing a surveying method or a forum, so every idea can be appreciated and seen by others. And this can improve the uniqueness and also have the elements that the students want to increase the participation of events of MUIS in the end. And if students don't feel comfortable to give their ideas or opinions shared in the forum, I plan to also open a Google Forms for students to give their ideas and suggestions for future events, but with a private manner.
Okay, so thank you for that. So I'll move on to the more specific questions pertaining to your manifesto. So, during our calls and also during the MUSA training session, I've explained to you about how it's a tradition for the MUIS activities officer to bring something new to the table, whether it's an initiative or an event, right? And in your manifesto, and also just now, you have talked about this initiative coming in the form of surveying and also asking the student themselves what events they want to execute, right? So can you further elaborate on this, as the manifesto, of course, is very brief because of the word limit. So the viewers and also myself have a better picture on what it is that you intend to do with this survey or with this form.
All right. Can you guys hear me? Because my connection is very bad right now. Am I lagging? Okay. So, so my initiative is actually to implement a surveying method or an interactive forum, so every idea can be appreciated and seen by others. So, I believe this can increase the uniqueness of most events compared to the other events and MUSA clubs and societies. And I believe that this can tackle the main problem that MUIS activities have been facing, which is the underrepresented communities. They can be exposed and also suggest addition to events that can increase the representation of their country and their cultures. Um, and like I said before, I'll also provide a Google Forms so that if they don't feel comfortable of their suggestions being exposed to their public, they can fill the Google Forms so that only our committee see it. And these interactive forms can not only generate uniqueness and events, and also tackle the problem that MUIS have been facing for years, which is the underrepresented communities, like I have explained before. All right, thank you.
Okay, so I have another follow-up question pertaining to that. So, in that case, do you already have a rough timeline on when will you do this interactive forum? Is it in semester one, semester two, or is it at the first of the year, or do you already have a rough plan, a rough timeline on when do you want to do it? Because it will also affect my next questions that I have.
Okay, so at the start of this, I plan this forum to be open throughout the year. So every event can have feedbacks and suggestions throughout the year. So it will be open as soon as I start being a MUISS Activities ISO. And I already plan out this forum very detailed by quite detailed. So I have already known the website that will be used to generate these forums, and also the timeline, which is the start of my time as a MUISS Activities ISO until the end of my um, the end of my time of being a MUISS Activities ISO, and it can be also passed down to the next MUISS Activities ISO, because I believe this initiative can be a long-term change that can be applied to MUISS.
Okay, thank you for that. So my follow-up question would be, seeing that you want to do this as soon as you become elected, right? Which is very good, but also you want to do this throughout the year of your term, right? But MUSA requires us, at least for my year, to do a budget planning very early on for the events that are going to take place in a year. So what is your precaution on this? How would you ensure that the students' events that they put in your forum or in your survey can be executed and accepted by student life, for example, or other MUSA departments, when you haven't necessarily allocated a specific budget or a specific rough plan of events that the students want, because it's open throughout the year, right? So how would you tackle this issue?
All right. Maybe if it's not possible to make events in the middle of a semester, I will just make alterations to events instead of making a new one. So these future events can have the changes that the students want without altering the budget of these events itself. So there will be no conflicts between MUSA and also MUISS budgeting.
Okay, thank you so much for that reassurance. So I still have a follow-up question regarding with this initiative also. So seeing that you're looking for ideas and feedbacks from students, right? So my question would be, how would you ensure that the students actually come forth and give in their suggestions? Because as you may or may not notice, MUSA, including MUISS, has prepared numerous platforms for feedbacks, right? For suggestions also this year, for students to voice out their concerns and opinions, but only a very little percentage of the student population utilizes it. So how do you plan on tackling this? How do you make sure that the students actually give in their responses to the forum?
All right. So to increase the response rate of these forums, I will be using other MUISS platforms such as Instagram or maybe Instagram stories to advertise this forum. But not only this forum and but also its importance to MUISS future MUISS events, and how important it is in tackling the problem of underrepresented communities. But and not only that, I will show these students that they are actually being heard through these forums, and make according changes to these events according to the suggestions or ideas that the students have stated in these forums, so that they can see that they are being heard. And if this is not effective, I will also include maybe lucky draws for the most constructive feedback or constructive suggestions, so that students are urged to fill these forums and give their ideas in these forums, so that the response rates can be increased.
Okay, thank you so much for that. So I have another question. So if next semester is offline, which is physical, hopefully, how would you ensure a smooth transition from online events to offline events? Because you have been on campus, right, for one semester, which is great, but about half or even more of your MUISS team haven't been on campus and might be unfamiliar with the on-campus environments and executing events physically. So how would you ensure that you yourself as an activist officer and also your team as a whole, whether it's your office bearers or your subcoms, that you are well equipped to handle physical events, whether it's contacting vendors, liaising with different and multiple contact persons, doing physical dry runs, and stage managing and others. So you can also use some of your past experiences that you want to highlight that you think may help you and your team to ensure a smooth transition from online events to offline events. So
So thank you, Gerald, for that question. So to ensure the smooth transition between from online to offline events, of course, I need to be familiar with the offline event planning and event organizing, and I am very well experienced in that. As in high school, I am in the execution of committee and the head of security, in which I contacted maybe stage vendors or maybe audio vendors, in which to ensure the well execution of events. And for my subcommittees that haven't been able to experience this like what I experienced because of their online studies, I will brief them on how I will give them a proper briefing on how to execute these events properly and how to contact vendors properly and the mode of communication and negotiation that could be used to contact to communicate with external parties so that the event will be collaborative between the subcommittees and also myself, and it can be executed as well as possible.
okay, so thank you for that, Krishna. So my next question would be pertaining to the topic of conflict. So in the field of events organizing, there's always conflict that happens during the D-Day of the event itself, right? For example, in sport competition, there's always an accusations being thrown around for cheating and such, or during, for example, MCN itself. Backstage can be quite hectic and conflicts are bound to happen. So these are examples from my predecessors and from my experience itself. So in a case where conflict does happen, I want to know what is your course of action as the head of activities to tackle these conflicts? How will you utilize your subcommittees? How will you manage your team to help ensuring a smooth sailing events, although there are conflict that may arise?
Sorry, I disconnected just now. And can you re-explain your question? I'm so sorry for this because I disconnected because of my own.
It's okay, it's okay. So my question is, because in events organizing, conflicts are bound to happen, whether it's, the backstage of hectic events or other sports event competition that MUISS will hold in the future, right? So my question is that in a case where conflict does happen, I want to know what is your course of action in tackling these conflicts? How will you utilize your subcommittees and how will you manage your team to ensure a smooth sailing events if or although there may be conflict that may arise during the D-Day of your event itself?
Okay. So I believe that communication is key, and as a meeting or a Zoom meeting for online events need to be held with parties that are related to talk about the issue or the problems that have been going on. And I believe this will minimize miscommunication and also a chance to clear things up and allow work to progress, allow the event to progress. And I will ensure that I will try my best so that the conflicts are handled in this meeting. But if problems continue, which is very much possible, I will let heads of MUISS to be aware of this and handle this problem professionally and as best as possible and as fast as possible so that the work can progress, the event can progress directly.
Okay, so thank you so much for that. So my next question, I want to first ask whether have you ever attended any of MUISS's event before, whether it's online or offline?
I have joined engaging events like movie nights, actually, but not offline events. I haven't really got the chance to join offline events, except for the welcoming party that was held by MUISS. But other than that, I haven't really joined offline events.
Okay, yeah. So I think my question is not necessarily a question, but more of a reassurance for the viewers and for the students that are going to vote, and also for me myself. So if next year is another online semester or offline semester, so how would you ensure that you can execute your role as a MUISS activist officer when you yourself haven't been in a lot of MUISS events before? So in a sense, how would you do your job when you haven't been participating in a lot of MUISS events before? So it's not necessarily a question, but more of a request of reassurance, I guess, for the students who are going to vote and for me myself.
Even though I haven't joined a lot of MOIS events, especially offline, I am an individual with a passion to serve international students. And like I said in my opening speech, I want them to experience what I experienced. So with this passion, along with my experiences of reaching out to external parties and hosting various events, either it's online or offline, and handling the logistic related matters and the events, which have boosted my negotiation skills, organization skills, and also confidence of communications. And I believe these skills that I possess are critical for an activities officer, and it leads me to believe that I can execute this job as maximal as possible, that I am a perfect candidate for this role, and I will ensure that every international student can maximize their experience, either it's on campus or off campus events.
Okay, so thank you so much for that. I think I have time for one last question. So, I guess as kind of a closing question before we give the floor to the audience, I want to ask, can you re-emphasize your vision, or what is your top goal or your utmost priority if you're to be elected as a MUISS Activist Officer next year?
Sorry, can you repeat that? Sorry, I'm so sorry. My Wi-Fi cut
It's
off
okay.
again.
It's okay. So my question is that I want to ask you to re-emphasize your vision and what is your top goal, or what it is that you make your utmost priority if you are to be elected as a MUISS Activist Officer next year.
Okay. So in general, my utmost priority is to give the students, maximize the students' experience in their university years, maximize their connections, maximize their cultural awareness, and also experience the diversity-rich events that MUIS is known for. And I believe through these MUIS events, by joining more and more MUIS events, I believe these students will experience what I experienced as a Monash Malaysia student, Monash Malaysia international students. And yeah, the end goal is to make these students experience the richness of diversity in the Monash Malaysia community.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. I think that's all the questions I have now. But if we still have more time after the questions from the audience, and I have another question.
All right, thank you for your questions, Gerald, and good job on answering them, Krasna. So now we'll move on to the next session, which is the Q&A session from the audience. So we have our first question here. So Rehan says, other than task managing platforms, what are you planning to do to maximize internal efficiency?
All right. So yeah, okay. Thank you for your question. So other than task managing platforms, I will also ensure the recruitment of competent subcommittees, which is very much critical in ensuring the systematic mode of work, as they need to, as competent subcommittees are needed for work to be done in a timely and well-organized manner. But not only other than recruiting competent subcommittees, I also need to motivate them to maximize their efficiency of their work. So I plan to hold casual meetings, monthly meetings with the subcommittees while playing games, sharing stories and experiences to not only see me as a leader but also as a friend. So a good relationship between the subcommittees and also myself is maintained, which will increase the chemistry of the team. And I believe that by the increase of chemistry, the internal efficiency will also be maximized.
Okay, thank you, Krishna. So the second question we have here is, Ralph asked, how are you going to cope with the small budget allocated to MOIS in the future?
All right. Thank you, Ralph, for your question. So the first measure that I could think of a small budget is, of course, to organize budget-friendly events. These budget-friendly events can be in the form of maybe movie nights or experience sharing nights or casual game nights, in which it can engage students but require little to no budget. However, I would try my best to ensure that MUISS big and flagship events will still maintain its quality. And if the budget is insufficient, in ensuring this big and flagship event to maintain its quality, I will give my best effort in finding a sponsorship. And with my relevant experience of reaching out to external parties, I believe this is very, very much possible. And another measure I could think of is also collaboration with MUSA. So the event could be a collaboration with MUSA so that it can maintain its quality, but without a high budget. So because the budget is split into the two, or the budgeting is split between the two organizations. So I believe a collaboration can help in terms of the budgeting. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So the next question we have here is from Ali. The question is, if the next semester is hybrid, how do you plan on executing events so that the students on campus and studying online are getting equal opportunities to engage? And how will you cater to both the groups fairly? Can you please provide your future plans for events related to hybrid semester?
All right. So to ensure the online and offline semester students are being treated equally, firstly, the first measure I could think of is the equal number of events. So the online students don't feel missing out and don't feel that they are treated unequally. So they have the same frequency of events as the offline students, so that they don't feel missing out of any of the offline events. And to maintain the quality of each online and also offline events, I will also organize equal budgeting so that the quality is maintained between online and also offline events. Um, and if this is not enough, and if students still have concerns, my initiative of making a forums can be used to get these students' responses of if they think anything is lacking from the offline or online events, and make changes accordingly to that to make them feel treated as equally as possible.
Oh, okay. Thank you for that. So we don't have any more questions from students right now. Um, so we can move on to the OB if you have any follow-up questions.
Okay, thank you. So I have a follow-up question. It's more of a general question again. So from what I know is that next year will be your third year, second semester, right? And also will be your fourth year. So it's your final years coming along. So how would you ensure to stay on top of your duties while being a final year student next year? Because as you know, MUISS has a lot of events, up to 20 events in a semester. And how would you ensure that you are managing these events and also your team well while being a third year student and a fourth year student in the next semester of next year? So yeah.
All right. So in this past 2 semesters, I'm actually involved in two organizations. So I am very well experienced in this. And in the next 2 semesters, I'm not planning to join any other organizations other than MUISS, because I want to give my full effort to MUISS. So I am very well experienced in this, as I have been in various organizations in the past. So along the way, I found task managing platforms to be very essential to help me organize my schoolwork and also organizational work, which is Google Calendar and also Notion, like I have explained in my opening speech, so that everything is set and scheduled since the start of the semester. And of course, I will ensure to also recruit competent subcommittees so that they can fulfill their responsibilities accordingly, and everything will be ensured to be on track. So the scheduling of schoolwork and also organizational work will be well organized. And I am a person that is not afraid to ask for help. So if I face any problems or any conflicts, I am not afraid to ask from people from the other departments of MUISS for help and assistance in facing my conflicts. So I will definitely do everything in my power to finish my test. But if I need help, I will reach out to the other departments to for students for facing my conflicts.
Okay, thank you so much for that. So I have another general question that is geared towards MUIS as a whole. So my question would be, because MUIS in itself is a division, right? It's very different from other MUSA functioning bodies that is a department on its own. So as a division, we work as a team, and we are only as strong as our weakest member. And so in this case, sometimes the activities officer, including myself nowadays, have to ask help from different subcoms departments and even on my own subcoms and even different office bearers, right? So my question would be, how would you handle accountability when you ask for help and when you give in someone, when you delegate a task to someone, whether it's your subcoms or other department subcoms or even your office bearer mates? How would you handle accountability when they have not come forth with what it is that you delegated them to do? So how would you tackle accountability in a sense, if you are in a team?
Mm, sorry, it got off. So you mean accountability in delegating a task to other students, to other subcommittee?
Accountability in a sense that how would you approach someone when you have delegated them with a task but they have not come forward with the task that they have been given? So it's either that what they did was wrong, or it's either that they go MIA, for example. So how would you handle this as a leader for your own department and also as an office bearer within your teammates?
Of course, if they went MIA, or maybe if they don't do the task that I assigned them to properly, of course, um, I will try to handle the problem myself, the task that I assigned them myself. But if that's not possible, I will I will brief them on what they did wrong, or how can they do this task better, and try giving them a second chance on doing the task that I have assigned to them. And if they still can't do the task right, or they still can't be contacted, of course I will try to transfer this task to another subcommittee or another member in the MUIS departments.
Okay, thank you so much for that. I think that's all the questions I have for today.
All right, thank you, Gerald. So we have one more question from the audience. It's from Ralph. He's asking that this year there has been many problems involving the ISP and international students. How can you contribute in helping MOIS in tackling similar problems that might arise?
All right. So I believe this ISP problem is actually more related to welfare, but I will answer this in the perspective of an activities officer. So I will try to work more closely with ISP and give them updates when any issues such as this arise. So maybe I can provide a platform for students to bring up their issues, and we can update ISP if there are any issues that need to be dealt immediately. Um, yeah, and I believe that this question is more directed for a welfare officer.
All right, thank you. We have one more question from Ali. The question is, how will you make sure that you are transparent in your operations?
All right. So I actually plan to implement a monthly Zoom meeting with all the departments, maybe just CRO and welfare, because we have a fine line between us in terms of goals and the planning of events. So in that Zoom meeting, I'm planning to discuss about all our problems that we are facing, conflicts, and also um, the progress of our planning and execution of events, so that everything is transparent between the departments, and not only transparent, but this also implements this also avoids the miscommunication between the departments to minimize the conflicts between departments. So the transparency between departments are maintained.
I hope that answers your question, Ali. So we don't have any more questions from the audience, but if you and your friends were not able to put your question down in the comments, oh, we have one more question. Um, So Adrian is asking, in the case of extreme situations such as major outbursts, profanity among meetings, or even harassment among the subcommittee, how do you as a leader deal in this extreme situations?
All right. I believe this question is related to the previous questions, as this involves conflicts between the activities department, and I believe like I said before, problems or conflicts between committees and the department is started from miscommunication, and this can also be handled by communication. So I am planning to hold a monthly Zoom meeting to avoid things like this happen, or harassments or any outbursts like you said, Adrian. So and if this problem still continues after I give them a warning in these meetings, I will transfer this problem and let the heads of MUISS okay, sorry, I disconnected. So let these students be let these the heads of MUIS be aware of this problem and handle this problem professionally, and along with the policy of MUIS, maybe it can be suspension or maybe other penalties that can be applied to them according to the policy of MUIS.
Okay, thank you for that. So we can wait for a minute or two for other students to ask questions since more people are joining right now.
Sorry, I feel like I didn't answer Ali's question. So can I elaborate? So because I didn't think about transparency to the public.
Yes,
All
yes,
right.
you may
So
elaborate.
okay. So as being in the MUIS team, I will be encouraging students from either local, international, or any students that are involved in Monash Malaysia community to join the MSC meetings as well, so that they can see firsthand what we as MUIS are doing, what we are MUSA MUIS are our progress and our mode of operation, mode of working as an organization.
Okay, thank you for that. I'd like to again just remind the students, if you weren't able to drop in your questions in the comments here, you can go to Musa's Instagram official page and drop your questions under the KYC series. So Gerald, if you have any more follow-up questions, you may ask.
I think that's all from me. So yeah, thank you, Krishna. Thank you, Anmol.
Thank you, Gerald.
So with this, we can proceed to ending the session. You can go ahead with your closing statement, Krishna, right now.
All right. To conclude, I would firstly like to thank the audience and also the moderators. I have a simple goal of celebrating the different cultures and showcasing all the beautiful traditions in the Monash community through most events. I believe that the experiences and skills that I possess in the event and logistics department are more than sufficient to fill an activities officer's main role of being in charge of and overseeing the numerous events held by MUIS throughout the year. If the opportunity is given to me, I would give my maximum effort in fulfilling my responsibilities and revamping the MUIS activities department. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Krishna, and thank you, Gerald, for your question. And thank you for everyone who watched today. Again, just a reminder, if you weren't able to drop in your questions here, you can go to Musa's Instagram official page and drop in your questions under the KYC series. With this, I'd like to end this debate session. Just to review on the next session, it'll start at 4 4:15 p.m. and we have most treasurers for next debate session. So stay tuned and thank you for watching.